Okay, guys, I have something super exciting to start off this week's check-in with. It's got nothing to do with my contest prep or anything at all, but you have to promise me that you don't go back to the person that this exciting stuff involves and tell them. In fact, they are going to be on an embargo across all of my social media, at least until Friday, the 8th of March. So it is my birthday coming up here in a few days. So March 7 is my birthday. And I guess my partner's birthday is March 6. Now, what's really cool is, first and foremost, we're born in the same year. So we're like almost identical in age. And we actually went and chat with our moms, I guess, not that long ago. And we asked what time we were each born. And then we started doing the math. Obviously, when I was born in Australia, we're like 15 or 16 hours ahead, depending on whether there's daylight savings or not. And it meant that we are 8 minutes apart. And I'm the baby. So I am 8 minutes younger than Sam. So anyhow, with all that being said, and some of you that have followed me for a really long time, you're probably tired of me saying like, I never take holidays, and I don't. I honestly love what I do. I love coaching. I don't like letting my clients down first and foremost. Like, I want to be there if you need me. But I know I need to take like a proper break. And I did get to have a wonderful vacation or a break off over the Thanksgiving period here in the US. I know that the Australians watching don't celebrate that, and I had never really even heard it, let alone understood what it was. So I did this year get to take a really nice break. I still had a few meetings and things. Obviously, we've been building lots of stuff in the background. So, I still enjoy hopping on phone calls and, talking through with our developing team and our team members, about all the fun things that are happening. So like I voluntarily do those because I'm excited about the stuff. So this holiday, however, although I will be having developer calls, I've decided that for my birthday, because it's been so many years since I've taken like a week off and traveled anywhere. And to be honest, I haven't been back to Australia since 2020. So right when COVID blew up the world, I had literally days just returned back after visiting back Tasmania for my sister's wedding. So I actually ended up staying an extra week longer than my ex-husband at the time, and I decided to come back after the fact. So no later than I'd gotten home, unpacked my suitcase, and Mum calls me and she's like, "You are so lucky you left yesterday. No one's leaving this country." So, I'm so grateful actually that I made it back in time, but it also meant that I didn't get to go back there for such a long time. And part of the reason for that was with Australia, the, I guess, authorities and the governing bodies were not letting anybody in or out for a long time. And then when they finally did kind of lift that embargo where you could travel in and out, number one, you had to be vaccinated. And then secondly, if you did come, you also still had to quarantine in a hotel based on like the government's, preferential selection. So you wouldn't be able to go straight to a hotel. You had to go and stay in their hotel for 2 weeks. Now, if you didn't just hear me, I don't take time off. So let alone I had family and businesses to run. So for me to have to, have 2 weeks where I'm stuck in a hotel before I can even go and enjoy a holiday, it just wasn't worth it. So I haven't been back to Australia since then. And obviously in light of my past 12 months or 18 months now, going through separation and just starting everything over, I haven't had the capacity to do it either. So super excited to be going home. But here's the kicker. Sam doesn't know that we're going to Australia. So I was telling him about this and he was like, well, I have spring break, I have to, plan everything around the school holidays. So obviously he's a professor at USF. So, we had to pick our window of opportunity around the time that he is off from school and not teaching. So I was like, okay, that sounds wonderful. It's close to our birthday. We'll go somewhere, close by, and we'll have a nice holiday together. So we were looking at like all the Caribbean islands, and I still haven't been to so many places like South. I'd love to get down to South America at some point. Who knows when that will be? And if anyone's got any suggestions, let me know of like luxury places you've stayed at. But I wanted to go, or at least look at Turks and Caicos. I have so many clients that have been there and they send me all their pictures with their check-ins and I'm like, that looks really nice. Really love Bahamas. I was there for competitions, but I never got to enjoy it because I was so busy focusing on being an athlete and performing at the WVFF. So, I went and did like one scenic day, and literally it was to a photo shoot like in this nice like mansion. And that was my time spent on the island. I think I got to the pool and the Bahama resort for like one of the afternoons right before I competed. So I was excited to go anywhere, to be honest, and just relax. So I was showing him all the hotels. He thinks that we are going to the Bahamas. He had to get a passport because he has never left the USA. I guess between doing undergrad and then PhD and then straight into, being a full-time professor for the last several years and having a research lab to run, it just doesn't permit you a whole lot of flexibility to go anywhere. So he had to go and organize his passport, which is super fun, but he thinks that we're going to the Bahamas. So I am so excited to, on Friday, like drive ourselves to the Fort Lauderdale airport and be like, surprise. So you can't tell him. I'm going to be telling him to stay off my social media, at least when I post this video. And I hope that you guys don't go back and tell him, but I can't wait. So I am really excited. I'm getting the opportunity to catch up with like several friends, people that were in, that have been friends for a long time, but because of the time differences, I haven't been able to communicate with them at all. It's just the worst time difference. In fact, I barely even get an opportunity to speak to my family for that exact reason. It's either midnight or 7 a.m. or vice versa. And it's just really difficult. So very excited to be going home soon. And I know it's like smack bang in the middle of my prep, which I want to talk a little bit about with you guys today. Like, how am I going to navigate that when I'm relatively close to picking a show? But yeah, I guess that's kind of where I wanted to start before I even dive into any of my data for this week. So that being said, this past week honestly just felt like a blur. I actually sat down and recorded this yesterday, and I'm having to do it again because I guess I messed up the settings in the recording program that we use, and it was on like 720, I don't know, for the recording quality, which is like, you wouldn't even be able to see me. I'd be like a blur. Like you put the blur sign over something and it's all pixelated. That's what I look like. So it's actually a good thing I'm having to record this again because I'm sure I'll have new thoughts, which is always good. But yeah, I remember sitting down yesterday, I wrote it down. I literally it felt like a blur. There wasn't necessarily anything like crazy going on, but there was a lot of things going on all at once. So in that reflective process where I was trying to think about, why did I feel so out of whack last week and just not necessarily present and engaged, I made a little bit of a list. So here's the list. I have relisted my home for sale here because obviously I am in a relationship and I am just so over long distance relationships. They actually suck, though I will say very grateful for the opportunity to have that forced upon you, at least in the initial phase of, dating somebody, because it really means that you get to take it at a slow pace and then you're not moving right in with each other. You have an opportunity to see how they live, what their lifestyle's like, and really get to know them as a person. So grateful for that. But now I'm like, yeah, I've got a pretty good handle on who I'm with. This has been really awesome, but it's also a 4.5 hour drive. So that's become really, really annoying. So I figure it probably means that I'm probably going to be moving back to Tampa here at some point. So I have relisted my property. And for anyone that has listed their property, when you've got showings and if you want to be flexible, right, with your agent, if you've got somebody that's really interested, so that they don't go off and look at another house. So I have had like cleaners in the house while I'm trying to do podcasts or while I am trying to do, multiple different things with work. And obviously my office is here at home. So like when they want to come and look in, this space, I can't be in here. So I also had to reshoot a couple of pictures. So then I had photographers in and out last week. And, you're just kind of breaking up your day with things that don't normally interfere with your normal workflow. And I think for me as somebody that has ADD, that is really hard to kind of get back into the zone, or at least I personally feel like that. And I'm sure there's others listening that even if you didn't have ADD, you would probably find that to be also very disruptive. So that was like one extra thing last week that was a little bit more disruptive to my week. Also planning holidays or vacations. I don't know maybe the ladies will maybe align with me a little bit more when I'm speaking about this, but when you go on a holiday, I'm like comparing all of the hotels. Like I have so much FOMO. I'm like, okay, here's my list of options. There's like 15. I'm like, oh, 15 options. Okay, well, which is the nicest hotel? And what are the costs of each hotel? Or what gyms do they have inside? So I'm like, then I'm looking at like the restaurants in there, because obviously now I'm thinking about, I'm in prep too. So I have to consider, I need to have access to a kitchen. So now I'm going through all the hotels and trying to decide, okay, which one has a kitchenette? Actually, no, I need a kitchen. So, it's just a lot of planning, not to mention getting all of your flights. We've got like 3 different stops to get from where I am now in Fort Lauderdale over to, I think we're stopping at San Fran, changing to, I guess, the international flight over to Sydney. Then it's Sydney, and I was trying to decide, am I going to go to Gold Coast? Am I going to go to Brisbane? Do I want to go and see my family down in Tasmania, which means I'd be flying to Melbourne, and then from Melbourne to Tassie. So there's like so many legs of this trip, and trying to get like all of the layovers to align obviously is a little bit of work. So, that's time I don't have. I mean, you guys have seen my schedule previously. Like, this is what it looks like pretty much every week. Last week might be a better representation of, what's going on for me. So like the time that I actually have to sit down and do anything that I want, let alone pay my bills, run, personal admin and do errands, it just doesn't exist. So felt a little bit under the pressure trying to just plan that stuff, but we got it done. And then also, I think trying to fit my training in at the moment has been challenging. Previously, when I wasn't as committed and I was doing like 2 or 3 days a week, I could fit in all my work and then I'd have a little bit of leisure time, so on and so forth. Right now, that's a non-negotiable. So just to find 90 minutes for the training piece, then not to mention the travel time to and from, depending on where I'm training, so that I can get access to really good equipment or just ensure that I'm motivated and pushing hard. It's not necessarily that my gym here in Fort Lauderdale isn't great. It's awesome. But, when you're pushing and you're dying and you're fatigued, sometimes you need a little extra. And, going to a new location is like new incentivization. It's motivating. It's, exciting. There's something new, new toys to play with. So that's been challenging, coupled with look at all that walking. So this week I am very proud. Biggest week on record as far as how many steps I got, which I know it's not my all-time highest, definitely not. But 11,000 at least in this prep is my highest weekly recording for steps. So I've been having to plan, an hour walk, and then 4 days of the week I've also got 90 minutes of training, and that just doesn't fit with the schedule that you just saw. So definitely felt pressure in regards to kind of fitting the training in. And then also, is there any free time on this schedule? No, none of this is free time. So then I've got to put in over here, like on Saturday. And again, I had a posing practice here somewhere. I've also got to do the grocery stuff and then the meal prep and then planning like all of this kind of content, which also isn't on here. So I think just the extra stuff, not to mention, I guess, revision for a big podcast that we just did this morning, which I was so happy I got to do that. So we were discussing our recent publications. So you may have been familiar with this. I've put it up a few times. This is our paper. I'll drop the link to this in the description of the YouTube video if anyone would like to go and read it. It is the dose-response relationship between resistance training volume and muscle hypertrophy. There are still doubts, and that was in response to a previous paper, or at least a letter to the authors of another position stand that basically said the opposite. Like, are there really any doubts? And that was by Schoenfeld and colleagues. So the whole purpose of this morning's discussion, we had some really excellent guests. We had Menno, we had Dr. Buckner, we also had Josh as well, all talking about training volume. And I think it was a really great discussion. But again, just thinking about my last week and why it felt like a bit of a blur and not really very focused was I'm also trying to prepare for that. So, I mean, I've got like 45 studies on the go. You're trying to make sure that you can go in really prepared. The last thing I want to do is just come in and not have, really good talking points. So, that's extra stress on top of your normal kind of work week. So, and then did I say lawsuit? Sorry, that's all still going on with my former company, Carbon. So Wow, just feeling the pressure at the moment. But hey, I think you either sink or swim. And I know I'm the kind of person that when the pressure's on, I probably perform the best. I love deadlines. You know, if I've got a time stamp that I have to have something done by, then I tend to do a little bit better. Some of you may relate to that. I'm not too sure. So that was, I guess, my past week in general. I don't know that I have any new recipes to give you from this past week because I was so under the crunch to get things done that on Sunday afternoon or Saturday, whenever I did meal prep, I had to just go to the things that were quick and easy, which I'm sure you guys relate. Sometimes it's like, I don't have time to go and research all the recipes. It's not possible with my schedule. So I just did a bit of repeat, but here's where that can come back and bite you in the buttocks. So one of the things I think is really important for anybody that is embarking on a fat loss journey, and again, regardless of the goal, if it's for aesthetic purposes or for health purposes, we still are subject to the same kinds of symptoms when we put ourselves into a caloric deficit. And I think food fatigue, flavor fatigue, and I guess general boredom with low calorie meals is definitely a thing. So whilst I opted for convenience this past week, I definitely found that being on another week with the same kinds of foods, and granted, I love my spaghetti bolognese and I do it with a zucchini noodle. I have a zoodler here, which by the way, I think I'll pop the link for the zoodler that I have. It is badass. You literally grab your whole zucchini, you just chop the ends off and you push it down and it literally spins out delicious noodles. So that's great for people dieting. And I also use the same thing for yellow squash. Now I love that meal, but I'm just like, again, today, like I could feel myself kind of getting all of that food noise that I talk about because I was so bored of my food. So this past week, I definitely made a conscious thought about that, and that I know in the next couple of weeks, and it's probably a good thing that I'm going traveling because I'll have to, find new recipes, new food brands, all that stuff when I go overseas. So that will be good, but it definitely impacted my capacity to want to be adherent. Now, I think if I had let this go for another week this week and maybe one more, I know that I would start to snack on things that are not calorie friendly. So I even found this week just going and picking and standing in the pantry a lot more. Now I'm getting leaner, so I know just as a default, I'm going to be getting more hungry. It's just part of the process. I'm used to it, done this 1,000 times. But I definitely found myself kind of unnecessarily going back to the pantry and, having a teaspoon of like a Biscoff spread, which I love. I have all of those things in my house. I'm not going to remove them from my house because I do not want to develop this, estranged relationship with those foods. I don't want them to go back up onto the pedestal. I have worked my ass off, and years of therapy and, personal development to try and normalize my relationship with all of those types of foods that I once put, so far out of reach. And again, that's even a tactic that people recommend. Put them out of sight, put them away. Now, yes, you can do that if you are, in a position like me where there's a hard deadline and you want to get to a certain body composition, but just recognize that that doesn't come without risk of then developing binge eating type tendencies. So for me, I am just being aware of that extra thought and focus on those types of foods. And I'm trying to, if I know that I can't make any other changes to my dietary choices that might leave me feeling more satiated, if I truly want this food, then I'm at least going to turn it into a proper snack. So that I'm not just, nibbling on something and then still not feeling really satisfied. So one of the things that I will do with like Biscoff as an example is I'll have it as a meal and I might spread it over like again, this is the weirdest combination of foods and you're going to crack up, but the little mini fiber wraps that I told you about probably a couple of episodes ago that are high fiber. So again, it's getting me some carbohydrate, but it's a filling, satiating dietary fiber source. And I am lathering a good 25 grams of that Biscoff over like 2. And then I might heat them up in the microwave and roll them up in a scroll, put a toothpick through it. And it's like a little, dessert. And then I might also have that with, something that's sweet, maybe some kind of Greek yogurt with a flavor added or a protein product. just to kind of round out the meal. So I've got some fat, some carbohydrate, some protein, so that I'm not still left like, oh, well, that teaspoon of Biscoff was a little bit, lacking, wasn't it? So, that's how I will probably get away with it. But I know for sure I had far too many packets of, well, not packets, but like grabs of the cheddar rice cakes. So I have those in the refrigerator, also the pantry at the moment. And then there's another brand, they look like Doritos, they're triangles, but they're like puffed rice with various flavors, and like they might just be lightly salted, for instance. But this past week, because of that food boredom, totally snacked way more than I need to. So I know I have to this weekend spend some time doing what I would tell my clients to do. Go and look up some damn new recipes, Holly. Get some food inspo, which was very convenient yesterday because I did get to do a little bit of that. I was driving to the post office to post some of our glute bands. I still have all of our banded products here at my house. So it is still me distributing those. I used to have a distributor, but I don't know, I can't recall the exact details, but where I've got hold of all of that stuff now. And yeah, I was taking all that stuff to the post office, and then I had to return some clothing items from a photo shoot that we recently did. They were too big. I must have hit the worst traffic I've ever seen in all of Fort Lauderdale. I'm like fuming, like sitting in traffic. I'm like, getting so mad because I was like, I need to get back to my work. Like, this is unacceptable. So anyway, I was like, okay, I can do something with this time, or I can sit here and fume. I'm going to choose the positive option. All right. I'm scrolling through like food pages, like screenshotting and getting some ideas. Also read a lot of emails, listened to some voice messages. All was good. But I did get an opportunity to do some of that instead of just wasting my time sitting in the car the other day. And it was standstill traffic, I might add. But so that's the first thing that I really wanted to talk about before we even go and look at all my data. So let's do that, I think, to start off with. Let's start there. That's obviously the most important thing. Am I progressing towards my goals? So again, if you're joining this week, brand new to the episode or the series, I'm targeting a weekly rate of weight loss of about 0.8 of a pound. It's relatively conservative. I believe that is 0.6% of my body weight. Let me just go over and check my other sheets. Don't want to tell you the wrong thing. Yeah. Okay. So it's 0.6%. So not a full 1% of my body weight. It's less. And that is a very like modest to conservative weekly target because of my limitations regarding my activity and how much I can move around. I am largely reliant upon manipulating my calories to create my deficit. By my 4 training sessions, I can't just go and do hours of cardio every single day. I don't have that luxury. So nutrition is kind of where I am focusing on. So I've chosen a more conservative weekly rate of loss of 0.6%, which works out to 0.8 of a pound for a very specific reason, just so that it's manageable. I'm not like starving myself and having to eat like, 1,000 calories or something of that nature. So this week was a little underwhelming in terms of the weekly average change. So you can see last week, my weekly average was at 136.1. And then this week I came in at 135.8. Now, I was very happy to see by Saturday that my weight was already trending down to 133, which is a good sign. And I do think that things are still moving. It's just the way in which like all of my training backed up to one another, probably where my dietary fiber changed, which I'll talk about in a minute. It kind of led to like a bit of a whoosh effect towards the end of the week. And because I didn't track my weight every day, and that is just me waking up in the morning and like saying, okay, I have to remind myself when I get home from training, I'm going to hop on the scale. I've forgotten to do it or I haven't had time. So I guess with that being said, so that I've got more consistent data, especially leading up to this travel that's coming up, I need to know very, very accurately what my current average weight is, like a true weigh-in, not skewed data because I've only got a few data points. One of these weigh-ins at 133 could be completely a below normal weigh-in on account of various measures that influence weight. So the more data I can collect, then I'm more confident that this is a true and accurate weekly average. So I am happy that it was trending down, but there were a couple of things that might have influenced that. So you can see here on Saturday and Sunday, I've got my mouse over the 2 fiber days. Now, Saturday was 13 grams of fiber. And then Sunday was 12 grams of fiber. I didn't even go out bar one meal this past week with a friend actually who I'll talk a little bit about here in a minute. Got to catch up with two people this past weekend, which was really nice. So 13 and 12 grams of fiber is really, really low for me. And I think one of the things that can happen is that will influence your weight on the scale. So if you've got less food volume sitting in your GI or sitting in your digestive tract, that's also going to influence what your weight is on the scale. So I do think that maybe, actually, you know what, I can probably take that back. Here's why. I weighed in on Saturday morning. So that's before I've had a day of low fiber. So these days were all really high. So as I say this, I'm just looking at my data and realizing real time that's actually not factual. This is probably a true weight and things are trending in the right direction. When this would have impacted my weight would have been the subsequent day. And you can see I didn't get a weigh in there. But this probably would have resulted in a drop on the scale that has nothing to do with body fat. So it would be skewing my weight in a negative direction and not necessarily because it had anything to do with fat mass or fat change. So that's one thing that I will, again, try to improve this coming week, just so that, again, when I'm gearing up to take my maintenance calories for this holiday, I've got really good sound data. But we'll see how that goes. So overall, my weekly compliance came in at 104, which, again, I'm really happy with that, granted the dissatisfaction of my food choices this past 7 days. So the fact that I stuck it out, I'm really happy with. I did come in a little bit over my target. So 1392 versus my target was actually meant to be 1335. So a small increase, but again, that might have been what was contributing to me not getting, the full 0.8 of a weight loss drop. So here, 0.25 is what I came down by on average. I'm shooting for 0.8. So I'm a sight away from that target. So it is what it is. I don't know that I'm going to be making a whole lot of adjustments this week to my targets. And I guess I'll go through that a little bit more here in a moment. So overall, protein was pretty good. Only one day that was a little bit lower, and that was a day that I went out for breakfast with a friend. So if any of you are followers of the ladies that compete in the WBFF, one of my friends, Victoria Scott, she is from Vegas. So her and her husband fly out here. He's actually the pilot, which is kind of cool. So they often will come out together and then stay like literally doors away from me, which is cool. So we went for a nice big walk on Sunday morning, grabbed a breakfast afterwards, and I ended up deciding I'm just going to shoot for hitting my calories rather than trying to hit my protein, because at that point by Sunday, like I said, I am just ravenous and hungry at this point, and you can see my hunger levels are starting to creep up here. So I was like, you know what, the best thing that I can do right now, save me going home and like eating the house out, eat something that you feel like is going to be satiating. If you don't hit your protein, it's not the end of the world. It's one day. So that's what I did. So I had a delicious breakfast sandwich, which had like avocado, bacon, scrambled egg, and it was on a brioche bun. Then it came with a fruit cup and some yogurt. So I had like a little piece of that. So that was kind of the Sunday days, nutrition being a little bit low with protein. But overall, I'm really happy with those numbers. You recall earlier in the prep, I was having such a hard time getting my numbers back up above 100 because I'd had so many months of not trying to focus on protein. So nutrition is pretty good this week. You can see that my sodium intake is kind of back to what my normal is. So I don't think there was any influence on my weight from sodium this past week. That's pretty standard. Okay, so coming over to have a look at my training for this past week. My overall caloric expenditure from my resistance training was actually really similar to last week. Now, you may recall, and I highlighted this particular day in pink last week, that was a day where I was filming and the session went for 3 hours. Because I'm starting talking. I know I had Coach Shannon with me at the time from our team, and we were kind of demonstrating different things and just talking a whole lot, So the overall time that elapsed just meant that my energy expenditure had gone up, and it wasn't necessarily due to the program being exerted any more difficultly than previous weeks. So it is cool to see that my overall weekly energy expenditure is sitting around this 2,200 number, which I'm happy to see. Training volume, I was able to up those numbers by a full 1,000 pounds this week. which is interesting because you can see here there's a significant difference in my day 4 workout. So last week's day 4 workout came in at 12,000 pounds of volume. This week's was only 8. And if I quickly shoot over to my program from last week, I actually missed an exercise. Again, I was training with, some of you might know the Fit Vegan chef, so Natalie Matthews. She also recently moved to Fort Lauderdale. And again, I've spent so much time not, seeing anybody. I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to actually go and catch up with the girls and get some good quality time in. It was also great because we're all in the same industry. So there's some good conversations. But I missed a whole exercise. And then also based on the exercise selections at the gym that we drove out to and trained at, it just meant that my volume changed. It doesn't mean that I trained any less appropriately. Every single exercise that I did, I still am taking it close or as near to failure as I possibly can. And I'm still hitting the same number of sets. I'm still working within the same rep range. So whether or not my volume changes, it's honestly less important. The global goal of resistance training, in my opinion, is that for every exercise that you do, whether it's a compound lift or an isolation movement, regardless of what the volume looks like at the very end, if you know that you took that movement to complete failure and you have exhausted that muscle, you're good. You're not leaving gains on the table by, seeing your numbers go down because you've changed out equipment, or, your volume is looking a little bit different. So yeah, I'm really happy with how my resistance training went this week. It is frustrating that all the days are backed up pretty close together, but it is what it is. And then to my weekly energy expenditure in total, we came in at 4,100 calories. So that is a great number. I hope to see that number again this coming week. So as far as what do I do for my macros this coming week, I'm going to be having one more week, week 10. You might notice that I haven't had a diet break just yet. I haven't felt the need to, and I've also, started at a higher body fat percentage, and I'm probably now just getting to this point where I'm pretty lean. If I chose to keep pushing and grinding, at this kind of cadence for any longer, I'm probably going to start compromising lean mass. So I know for a lot of individuals, they will ask me, whether they're clients or just people asking questions in general, like, are these diet breaks necessary? What kind of governs a diet break? Do you definitely need to have them? And I will say, at least based on the information that we have to date, which there's not a whole lot of information on diet breaks or going back to maintenance calories. In fact, there's hardly any information in the overfeeding world as it is. It's just not as well studied. Not everybody's jumping in to sign up to an overfeeding study. Whereas if you're doing a fat loss study, everyone's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So it's just a less studied area. But what we do know, I think, about taking periods at maintenance calories is that it can help to offset some of or mitigate the potential losses in lean mass. Now, I would argue that if we do get more research becoming available, I think that what probably is even more important about whether or not you are going to, as an individual, lose lean tissue versus fat tissue during a fat loss phase is your starting body fat percentage. So if you've got a high fat mass, and again, what does that mean? And again, I'm just hypothesizing here. This is my personal opinion. I think that if you're above, say, 25%, I just think that you're at a lower risk of losing lean tissue compared to somebody that is, 12% body fat or less, which is probably what I'm at right now. I just think naturally I'm at a higher risk. My body is going to start trying to protect me from dying. It's like, why are we trying to cut calories, guys? There's no fat on her, So initially what is likely to happen is that when your body's looking for fuel to fuel the training session, to fuel the walks, to fuel your day-to-day, activities of daily living, we're starting to go, well, what's necessary and essential and what's not? Oh, all that girl's lean body mass over there, she's pretty muscular. She doesn't really need that. That's not urgent. She doesn't have to have that much muscle. So we're going to start breaking down that lean tissue instead of going to our fat reserves. It's trying to protect you. It's going to hang on to those fat reserves as opposed to, looking to that lean tissue. for energy as an energy source. So I think, there are a couple of things that really govern. That's, again, my personal opinion. I don't know that there is enough research for me to say that with any amount of confidence. And I know any researchers out there would say the same thing. Again, this is me just speculating. But I think your body fat percentage really is going to be one of the key indicators as to whether or not you are at high risk of losing lean tissue. The second thing that I think, and I've probably talked about this in other check-in videos, is again that weekly rate of weight loss. So how quickly are you losing weight? How much is the body having to kind of adapt to this new stress that you're putting it under? And I guess thinking about like general adaptation. If you lose weight at a really rapid target, and again, I would define that as probably anything above 1.5% of your body weight per week, I think that is when we probably start to see, again, preferential selection of energies potentially coming from breaking down lean tissue and not necessarily the breakdown of triglycerides stored in adipose tissue. So I'm obviously doing this at a very conservative weekly rate of loss, but I'm automatically higher risk because I am lean. So I think in terms of what I am shooting for at the moment, I'm happy with this number and trying to round this back to where am I going to go from here. I don't want to make any more like wild drops if I don't have to. I'm hopeful that this week with less picking and snacking and just better adherence to my macro targets, that we will have another really successful week. And I really want to, because I want to really enjoy my holiday when I go away and not be worrying about, I'm already behind the mark for this competition. So I'm going to be setting the same targets for this exact week. I've already got them entered in here. This is the new week. So 13:35. I'm not changing a dang thing. If anything, I hope that my steps are higher on this range. So I'm hopeful another, 10,000 would be possible this week with some focused attention to making sure that when my alarm goes off in the morning, I'm getting my ass out of bed, making sure that I'm putting myself to bed at a reasonable time, and that, I'm doing what I say I'm going to do so that I can execute on each of these behaviors. So that is what I'm setting myself up for again for this week. I now want to pop over to my YouTube channel and actually go through and see if there are any questions here that might be helpful for me to go over. So I know lots of people have been asking about my Ms. Bikini Olympia program part 1. It is available for you, but it's not in the land of apps yet. Don't get me started on the app. I am embarrassed, I'm frustrated. Actually, frustrated doesn't cut it. I have sworn more in the last couple of weeks to people that are close to me than I would ever desire to swear. I do not like cussing. I hate it. I think it's disgusting and an improper use of language. But I've been really frustrated. So in light of not having our app, which I had anticipated on launching and giving to you guys earlier in the year, like launch January 1st when everyone wants training apps, I am going to it's provided to you in either Excel or Google Sheets, and it's got all of the video demonstrations. It literally is this program right here, but weeks 1 through to 6 with all of the videos linked as demonstrations. So you can see here, if I hold that up, all of these give you the video demonstrations too. So if you are interested in doing my program, all you need to do is drop a comment in the YouTube and I will send you the direct link so that you can get yourself a copy. Which is why someone is here saying, can I have your program? I actually put it, I talked about it in one of my Instagram posts recently. So you can get it if you would like it. It also does show you the breakdown of different muscle groups so that you can make sure that it is a good fit for your goals. Because remember, this is my goals, which may not be the same as yours, let alone experience levels. So for anyone that's brand new to resistance training or maybe within your first year, I would actually say that the volume of my program is probably too high, or at the very least, if you're going to give it a stab, instead of doing it 4 days like I do, I would split it up into 5 days. So spread out that volume so that not each individual session is so taxing, because it is pretty heavy. It's also very time consuming. So you might not have 90 minutes in the gym each day. I certainly didn't until I started prepping again. So spread it out a little bit more. And I would actually say take the training set number back to 1 or 2 sets. and then see how you feel, see how your recovery goes. And if you felt okay, then you could probably add in, the next set and progress from there. The last thing I want you to do is go in and injure yourself when this is an advanced program for somebody that is striving for, the Olympia. Okay, going down the questions here. So, love your updates. It's always good info and context. I'm feeling really fatigued and tired, very slow in the muscles, etc. Would you take an extra rest day or fuel with more food, and still in a small deficit? So I think what this person is asking or saying is that instead of going back up to your known maintenance calories or even into a surplus, just adjusting the degree of that deficit, is that advisable? Would I do that? Absolutely. I think there's multiple ways that we can tackle our fat loss. I've had clients that do every other week maintenance, and it works out to be like half of a year of dieting, but that works for their schedule. So, there's what the science says, and then there's the most direct, route to achieving our goals. But it doesn't always pan out like that. We have to adopt the individual's, lifestyle and add some context so that it works for them. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even yesterday for me, though it's going to be part of this new present week's check-in, I didn't track my macros. I was so busy reading all of these papers that I have sitting in front of me and just preparing for our podcast into the evening. And I was like, I know these foods that I've prepped are macro friendly. I'm not even going to worry about, tracking them. This is more important. I'll deal with the consequences. But I also know I'm probably in the ballpark. So, I know that I was probably still in a deficit, but of course it's not going to be, the 0.6 that I am, shooting for. And I have to take ownership of that decision. It is what it is. So yes, I think if you wanted to have an extra rest day, of course, my goodness. Yeah. They're the kinds of conversations that I have with clients all the time. So absolutely. Now, if you have a deadline like me and I'm like 20 days out from a show, I would really have to consider weigh up the pros and the cons. Okay, well, what kind of, calorie adjustment am I going to make? How's it going to impact my, my weight at the end of the week? And again, if it's just one day, I think that it would still probably make sense if it means that you feel a bit more revived and recovered and it helps you keep going for the next 20 days. But context is always really important. But I think for the most part, I'd say, yes, I personally have done this before, and I do that with clients, but it's usually fairly structured and we have a bit of a game plan about it. It's not as spontaneous as my decision yesterday not to track. Okay, your shoulders and arms look very lean and fab. I guess Riderwear haul is off the cards as you seem very busy. I would love to do a Riderwear overhaul, but I haven't, as I've been an affiliate with them for 7 years now. So if anyone doesn't know who Riderwear, they are the clothing, like the athletic wear, leisure wear that I have exclusively worked with for that timestamp. But for the last 12 months, I'm like, what's the gym, let alone do I need a new workout outfit? So I have each month as an affiliate, you're given a certain dollar value to spend in the shop so that you can, promote the clothing and, share it with your audience. And I don't think I have used my little allowance for over 12 months. So it's only this last month I was like, yeah, I probably need to. I think I even got an email from someone saying, Holly, yeah, you've been a little bit slack. So I would love to. It's just trying to find the time to fit it in. I think I know you guys appreciate seeing all of the different styles and how they fit, etc. So, I might throw it into one of my content schedules for the next lot of filming that I do. But I would have to spend some time and actually look at all of their stuff. I did get a nice couple of outfits just recently that I put up on my story, but I didn't make it into a piece of content. So maybe that's something that I can do. Also, this person also says, can you please make some of your low-calorie protein balls from 2017? They would be great. I love them. But I have been avoiding artificial sweeteners lately. So interesting. Yeah, I haven't done a whole lot of cooking in the last 12 months for obvious reasons. But we did just do our recent macro-friendly recipe guide with Team Be Your Body. So we've got some of the coaches' recipes in there. And I also collaborated with one of my clients and also personal chef, Marlene. So if you haven't seen that book, guys, holy moly. I'll pop it up on the screen for you right now. It's a really great book, and it has some very delicious recipes. But I don't think there are any protein balls in that one, but they're so easy. I probably can add that to my content list with a right aware overhaul too. And I'm in the same boat as you. The sweeteners really mess up my stomach, but right now it's the only thing that I have to get through. So I have to wear the sacrifice of some abdominal discomfort for the ability for it to allow me to adhere to my calorie targets. But I can certainly try to do some without all of the sweeteners. Okay, so please provide a link to the new program. Okay, yep, I think I did that for this person. Thank you so much for your journey. If you've been dieting and training for say 7 weeks as you have, how do you calculate your new maintenance calories to reflect your current activity? Whereas before, when you first started, your maintenance was calculated being sedentary. So first and foremost for this person, thank you so much for the question. That's a great question. When I started my prep, I wasn't completely sedentary. I was still lifting probably 2 or 3 times a week, but it was hit and miss, and the training volume certainly wasn't that high. And then I was doing some walking, but again, hit and miss. It might be 2 out of 5 days I'd get a bit of a walk in or something like that. So when I calculated my maintenance calories back then, I had that in mind. So, fast forward to now, I'm obviously doing 2 30-minute spin classes or anything to equate 600 calories across the course of the week. I'm doing about 8 to 10,000 steps consistently, and then I've upped my training volume, intensity, everything. It's all a lot higher. So for me to know what my maintenance calories now, this might be better exampled with my sheets over here. So what you would do is you would look at your weight change collectively. I like to do it over a group or a cluster of a few weeks. So you would add up. I'm conscious of me pointing to the cells here because I feel like the video that's on me, I can't move it and I don't want to hide it. Sorry, or I can't move it around. So anyway, I would collectively add up the weeks that I have, the last 3 weeks of weight loss. So let's say it is, and I'll pull up my calculator just to do this right on the fly with you right now. So if I've lost on average half of a pound, let's say last week, I first need to get this pound over into grams. So I'm going to divide this number by 2.2046, and that gives me 0.22 of a kilogram. So that doesn't mean a whole lot yet. I want to get this into grams. So I'm going to multiply this by 1,000. So we're looking at 226 grams is what I have lost on average over the last, let's say 7 days. Now I'm going to multiply that by a factor of 6.2. Now you might be wondering where that came from. So this is me making an assumption that for every gram of weight that I have lost, it wasn't 100% fat, and it also wasn't 100% lean tissue. It's probably somewhere in the middle. In fact, for me, being as lean as I am right now, it's probably merging on closer to 4 calories per gram because it's probably getting down to the fact that I'm getting really lean and she hasn't got a whole lot of body fat left. So what is being lost could also be meaningful amounts of lean tissue. I'm sure I probably pronounced that and said that really strangely, but I think you follow my drift. So let's actually do that again. So 226 grams is how much weight I've lost on average, let's say for the last week. So let's go to the lower end of that range. Let's say 5.9. So this is a number that I also use again for leaner individuals. So over the last 7-day period, I have been in a 1,333 calorie deficit in total. And now I want to find out what that means in a single day. So I'm going to divide that by 7. So each day for the last 7 days, I have been in about 190 calorie daily deficit in order for me to lose that 0.5 of a pound or that 226 grams of weight. And again, that's me assuming that it's not 100% fat, but it's also not 100% lean tissue. It's somewhere in the middle. So it's then a really simple calculation. I might have actually done this last week too. So I'm now just going to take the average caloric intake that I've been having, which was, let's just call it 1392. It's easy. So I'm just going to add those together, 1392. So my current maintenance calories, why did I do this? 1582 is my current maintenance calories with that amount of training. So I have the luxury when I go to Australia of probably being on these kinds of numbers instead of the ones that I'm on right now for the creation of a caloric deficit. So I hope that that answers that question. There's a little bit of math in there. And if anyone's still confused, please reach out. Okay, next question. Love all your videos, love your information. I am a special needs teacher in a preschool classroom, so I'm on the go all day. Plus, I teach a side cycle class. I'm having hardest time consuming enough calories to gain more muscle. I'm also vegetarian, so a lot of my food has so much fiber. I'm always full. Oh my gosh, I totally relate. I have a couple of clients right now that are plant-based and have expressed the same frustrations. I lift 5 days a week. Any tips with this? I'm only getting 1,200 calories max. Oof, yeah, that's low, especially based on your total body weight here. I think that the best thing that you can probably do right now is if it's more of I don't have the time to get in more calories, I'm so busy, I'm on the go, and I'm also very active, I would just be looking for more calorically dense foods. I mean, it's how I operated for the last 18 months, so I didn't choose plant-based. I knew that I was only getting in 2 or 3 meals. So I'm like, these better be decently caloric in nature. So, I was eating some pretty fun foods because I knew I wasn't going to have an opportunity to do it out of, deliciously, home cooked, nice whole foods because I didn't have the time. So I had to opt for some more energy dense food products. Now you can do that through whole foods. I probably shouldn't pretend like you have to do it through junk foods. That's not the case at all. It might be that you add in like some avocado. You might add in some more full fat dairy to your diet. You might use more plant-based oils in your cooking. You might eat more fattier cuts of fish and seafood from an omega-3 standpoint. So yeah, just looking for more caloric density so that you're not having to add food calories through more volume, which is, a bit more common, I guess, in a plant-based diet. So yeah, you could pull out some of that fiber and again, substitute, replace it with foods that are a little bit more calorically dense. Okay. Oh, I love this Danny Moore guy. He comments on every video. Love it, Danny. Love it. Okay, so, and then this last one is honestly just a funny comment, which I've already responded to, but I may as well read it to you guys. I'm someone who used to weigh 140 kilograms, and I'm a statistical outlier because I lost a lot of weight and have kept it off for over 10 years. Well, that part's not funny. Fantastic. It's awesome to hear that this person's had such success. I understand that eating disorders, all variants, as I've cycled through all of them. I don't really understand why you torture yourself with ordering large quantities of junk food. This is not healthy. Eat a cookie outside the house and a bakery every now and then in public, but don't bring all that junk into your home where you can torment yourself every second of the day and possibly trigger them to eat things that you don't. So I definitely see this person's point, but I would say the way that, I've certainly chosen to eat over the last few years is not really unhealthy. And I think I might have talked about this previously. And this person specifically referring to me last week where I had the Valentine's Day cookies. So I may as well just read what I said. The owner of the cookie company that I had cookies from actually is a good friend of mine, and I was gifted them for Valentine's Day. And I said, when I'm not competing, there are no foods that I restrict from my diet. In fact, for the last 18 months, I've enjoyed cookies and many other foods just like these without any concern whatsoever. And I truly mean that. Like, I have all of these types of foods. Now, my whole diet isn't just garbage, which this person has kind of suggested it is, which is a little confusing because I think out of everybody I know, if you were to look at how many veggies I eat, it's crazy. So I think my diet's actually very, very wholesome. But, if I've got additional calories, I can play around with some fun foods. It doesn't make me unhealthy. And again, thinking in the context of energy balance, like that is the governing driver of whether or not we're going to, gain body fat or lose body fat. And you can eat in 1,001 different ways and maintain, energy balance. Now, I'm not saying that all foods, have equal nutritional value. And of course, I could hit very low calories, lose a lot of weight, but be eating like crap terribly. I could. But I wouldn't want to do that because I care about my health. I'd be looking at my saturated fatty intake. I'd be looking at my omega-3 consumption. I'd be mindful of my dietary fiber consumption. Those things are all really important and shouldn't be discarded. But, having some cookies in my house, I don't think that this is unhealthy behavior. And I think when you've passed or had past struggles with an eating disorder, I do think that it is possibility, but hopefully that you're working through the underlying cause of that disordered eating or eating disorder, and you're learning to strike a balance with all foods, and that you can, have them as needed. I think when we are still struggling with, calorically dense, highly palatable foods, and it's turning into, binge eating episodes, the food isn't the problem. It might actually be related to you're still undernourishing your body. You're hungry. There's true physiological need. And for someone like me, I'm doing competition. I expect it. I'm not, and again, if it was having that much of a negative impact on my health, where I was, lapsing back into binge eating episodes, I wouldn't do it. And I'd say that to anybody as well. If it's causing that much psychological distress, then dieting is no-go. We need to get you back out into a surplus environment and establish a really good relationship with those foods. Let me continue with what I was saying here. So I said whenever I started my prep, however, my calories did come down by about 600 from my original maintenance, which is enough to make it a little more difficult to fit these things in. So that said, provided that about 80% of your diet's coming from whole foods, there's absolutely nothing wrong with including some soul foods in moderation, and it still remains extremely healthy, and I think physically and mentally. So that was the questions for this week. I think if you guys have questions, please, by all means, send them through. I would be more than happy to go over those for you in our check-ins. This is probably like a 40-minute video as always. So that's all from me. I'm so excited. I'm like counting down the days to go back to Australia. So if you are from Australia, I haven't been back home since 2020. So I need restaurants, I need things to do, people to spend some time with. I'm so excited. I think I'm going to be going to Noosa for a few days, and then I'm going to be heading back down to where I was, I guess most recently before I relocated completely to the US, which is Broad Beach. So staying in that area, and I'm definitely looking forwards to some fun things to do. I definitely want to have like a pool day, maybe a few cocktails. So if anyone's got any ideas, let me know in the comments. I need your help. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you need copies of any of, I guess, the training programs I've talked about, if you'd like to get your hands on any of my recipe books, if you'd like to get your hands on my recent publication, you can do that as well. That'll be linked in the description. That was this one that I talked about at the beginning. If you'd like a copy of my new book, The Complete Exercise Guide to Muscle Hypertrophy, you can grab that through the links in the description, and basically everything else that you need to know. Alrighty guys, I'll see you at my next check-in, and wish me luck this week.